It's leg day for droid building. Let's go. What's up, everyone? So welcome to the channel. So you want to learn how to build a droid? Well, you're at the right spot. So I had a lot of interest in other platforms wanting me to show how I build a droid. Well, in this case, I really do want an R5 to go with my R2, and we're going to make him functional. We're going to do everything, and we're going to basically build him in a series here of videos that I plan on making. So we're going to walk through the files. We're going to show you how I print some stuff, um, and my recommendations on how I like to print things. And if you're a first-time droid builder, great. Hope you learn a lot. If you've been building droids for a while, cool. Hope you learned something. If not, you prefer a different method, totally fine. This is just what works well for me. I know the interest is there, so I would just love to build a droid with you guys as the coming weeks go by and I make these videos for you. So we're going to start off with the legs today and just go from there. Now, real quick too, I just want to make sure everyone knows this. If you're going to build this kind of a build, plan for 25 to 30 rolls of filament roughly. The reason I say that is because you're going to have some misprints. You're going to have some failures, unfortunately. It's just part of 3D printing. But the other part of it too is because you're going to have other parts that are more structurally sound than other parts. You're going to want to make those with more infill and more walls compared to other parts. And we will get into all of this. So let's walk through the files real quick, and then we'll get into the legs. Also, as I was editing this video, I didn't realize I never told you guys what I'm using to print this droid in. Now, I learned with PLA, it's not really great for cons. You can get away with it as long as you're avoiding heat and things like that. But now with everything that I've learned, I am printing this whole thing in PETG. It's what my current R2 is in. I still have my original R2 body that was printed in PLA. Just sentimental value. I'm afraid to get rid of it just because knowing that that was my first real build. But anyways, yes, I'm recommending PETG for these. They're going to hold up with strength, heat, everything, especially if you're planning on taking it to a con. So just want to give you guys a heads up. I'm planning on using PETG. PLA is fine as long as it doesn't leave your house or you don't have it outside for numerous hours of the day, showing it off, things like that. If you're taking it to a con, great. That's awesome. Just be careful of the heat, especially if you're driving it around and things like that. You don't want the excess heat to possibly warp anything while you're driving it around. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on what I'm planning on using for it. So here we have Michael Badley's page. This is the one you are going to go to for your 3D printed files. As you can see in this part, you can see where his stuff is blurred out. Now, he has numerous tiers of what you can do for his Patreon. If I don't really need to pay for anything because the R2 files are free and so are the R5 files. So I don't really have to worry about that. But if you want to do something like a chopper or get the MK4 dome that he has just released for R2, which is even more functionality with movable pie tops and details and everything with hinges and servos and whatnot, at least do the dollar. That'll unlock a lot of this stuff for you. So, but when you come to this page here, you're simply going to if you do decide to pay for it, you're going to click on your membership. You can scroll down. You can see where his monthly stuff is. And as you can see, it starts as cheap as $1. You can't go wrong with that. It unlocks quite a bit of files. I know I used to do the $5 a month, and that basically unlocked all of the full-size Astromechs, and I believe even some of the smaller ones like the pit droid on a speeder bike and things like that. So yeah, that's just, if you don't want to pay for it, perfectly fine. R2 files are free. If you want to pay for it and get some other stuff, plenty of options to choose from. So now we're going to go back into the About section, and this is the link that you're looking for right here. So we just want to click on that link, and that's going to pop up his OneDrive. So we're going to go into the Astromech folder, and you can kind of see chopper arms. I have access to that, but I don't have access to the rest of the files. Custom ones were basically custom one-offs, people helping design other things, instructions for a lot of the parts going together. But what we want is print files. And now here you can see Astromech MK3, Astromech V2. Um, I would recommend going with the MK3. Reason being is it is updated. It is just a better design overall. Um, you don't have to. Now the V2 is for smaller printers, which would be perfectly fine for your bamboos or your K1s, things. The printers that are coming out now, they do fit. Now the other thing too is with the MK3, there is a folder here for a custom cut. It says for Prusa, but what's really neat about it is uh, body, legs, and outer feet all have been cut for the smaller printers, such as a bamboo and things like that. So there's a lot to choose from here. I also highly recommend checking out the modifications of from Tim Hebel. You can see lots of upgrades, and it is just awesome what this guy can do as well. So it's just a very, very well rounded community with everybody wanting to help. So for my current project, I'm going with the MK3. Um, and I'm just going to be working with these. Now, I do like the back panel removal just so I can get into the back instead of removing the dome constantly, and especially with an R5 dome. Um, it's going to be even more, well, not so much difficult, but more so just more careful, I guess you could say, because the R5 dome is much larger than an R2 dome, and it's just easier to go in through the back and do any maintenance that may be required. So unfortunately, there are no cut files for these, so I will end up taking these at some point and cutting them. But what I'm wanting to do right now, and what this video is about, are the legs. When I start a droid, I typically start with the legs. They are the most time consuming, um, just because of strength and infill and things like that. So, highly recommend checking out Michael Badley's Facebook page, get on his Patreon, even if it's the free one. Just take a look at the files, see if this is something that you would like to do. So, now let's go talk about the legs. So here's your basic layout of the leg. As you can see, it does have a few different components that go and play with it here. Now, I printed the leg itself in 6 walls, 40% infill. Reason being is because this is a structural part. It holds the body up. You want it to be durable. You want it to be strong. So this way you're not having any issues down the road with it being at a con or anything like that. Now, if you're making a static droid, you're not planning on moving it around, but maybe wheeling it in different places of your home or something, you can go a little bit lighter. It's not going to hurt anything. Um, but I've already got this glued. I do like using the OD purple primer. I figured since it does weld PVC pipe, it definitely welds all these together. It fuses these pieces together, and I do appreciate my buddy showing me this little trick with PETG, and I love it. So now, like I said, this was printed with 6 walls, 40% infill. Now the rest of these parts, because they're not structural, so I don't need them to be super strong. These were simply printed in 4 walls, 10% infill, just super lightweight, just so I have the um, pieces on here. I don't need them to be super strong. But this time around, real quick too, I went with the V2 files for the horseshoes. These are the V3 um, files. They're the cut files from the Chris something. The name of the files in there. I use these. They printed great on the bamboo. Fused them together, and then I just got some lines to fill. Not a problem. But I wanted to try the V2 horseshoes. Now I have the V3 on my current R2, but the reason I wanted to try the V2 is because this piece is actually separate. Where the V3, it's all one piece. Now I wanted to try this because I think my whole thing is it's going to be easier for me to not mask it. I can just simply paint it, put it on, and then the horseshoe can go on top of it once it's all glued together. I think it's going to be a little bit easier, less masking to worry about, especially because really the only thing I'm really painting on this are the edges here. Everything else doesn't really matter. So there's your basic layout of the leg. And once you get it all printed, then we're going to go move on to the ankles, which is another whole scenario, which is our weakest point in the entire build. Also, too, I didn't talk about these, but these are the leg inserts that the bolts will go through. Now, I've learned that metal with plastic tends to creak and crack sometimes, so I actually went ahead and made these out of TPU. Hopefully, that will quiet some of the noise down. You don't have to use TPU. You can certainly use any other filament that you like, but I'm going to try this way because I'm hoping it'll quiet some of it down. So now the part you've all been waiting for, the ankles. This is going to be the longest part of your entire build for print. The reason I'm saying that is because this is one of two weak points in the entire build, unfortunately. This little spot right here, unfortunately, will snap at some point, and there's just no way around it. If you are printing these properly, these will last you for a very long time. My first set of ankles, I learned the hard way. I didn't print them right and ended up snapping within a week. Yeah, that was not fun. Um, so a few things that we want to talk about with the ankles is one, you need these to be extremely sturdy. Now you thought it was crazy when I was printing those legs at 6 walls and 40% infill. Well, these are 8 walls, 50% infill. Um, because I want these things to be rock solid. I don't want a ankle breaking or cracking or anything at a con, and the next thing you know, you're done. Your droid's done, unless you plan on printing numerous ones and swapping them out, which can get annoying and then potentially could break other parts faster because you're replacing those same parts over and over again. I don't recommend printing these things light. So when you're printing this, do not print it straight up. Now that will eliminate all of that support material. I get it. That's how I did my first one. I didn't listen to everybody that was telling me not to print it that way. I did it. I learned. That was my fault. It is recommended to print it like this, either adding your supports or there's a file with a support already added to it, which Michael's files are phenomenal with his um, added support file uh, already built into it. They pop right off. They are great. And we're going to notice that in the body when that time comes. So I cannot stress this enough. Print this the proper way. Now, I believe the instructions, if you are reading them, do say to print this at a 0.3 layer height, 15% infill or 10% infill using ABS or PETG. Um, and it's too light. Now, also with ankles, real quick, you're going to see two different files. You're going to see a standard, which will be labeled STD. I know it's bad, but you're also going to see one that says long. Now, depending on which mode you want to print, is the ankle you need to pick. Once you pick that, you have to stick with that ankle. For this build, we're strictly doing the standard ankle. We're not doing, so the longer version is actually for two leg mode. So you'd be able to put a movable shoulder in. He can stand on two legs, all that stuff. We're not doing that on this build. We are doing a standard 3 leg build. So I do not need the longer version of the ankle. So I just want to give a heads up on that. And now I'm not going to put it in this video either, but the front ankle as well, same scenario, 8 walls, 50% infill. You're going to print the two halves and then glue them together. You're going to make sure it's laid flat, just like the outer ankles as well. Uh, Again, it's just for support reasons and making sure the ankle doesn't fail, but I at least want to touch base on the front ankle and the two different size ankles as well. So while working on all of that stuff, get all the greebles and things ready to go. Um, this is a large project in itself just for the legs, which is why I start with it. I cannot stress that enough. Well, we've made it this far. We've got the legs all printed, and as you can see, everything fits nicely together. Now, we are not going to glue any of the greebles or anything along those lines. We're simply test fitting them for right now. Go ahead and glue your main legs. Go ahead and glue your horseshoes, but we're not going to actually permanently put these items together because we want to get this stuff painted. So this is the perfect time to test fit everything, make sure everything fits properly. We definitely don't want to be putting the ankle details, gluing these onto the ankles or anything yet, because These are getting painted silver and blue, where the ankle itself is being painted white. And there's just, it's multiple bits of masking we don't need to do. We can glue all this stuff together after paint, but it is good to double check fitment on everything. As you can also see on here, I just want to briefly talk about this. For the ankle cylinder here, you can see where there's tape where I'm holding it together. I'm trying a different cylinder, but there's nothing wrong with the original ones that I did. If you want to just print those because they're in the file section of the ankles, perfectly fine. This was in a modified folder at the beginning where these are actually in multiple parts, as you can see, because, well, because basically these are what they're calling a seamless leg cylinder. So you can basically paint everything and then put it together afterward, because all the lines are in the proper spots, all the detailed sections are in the proper spots. So they're in multiple pieces just to print without having to mask. So I wanted to try these as well. Take a look at those modified files. Yeah, you just never know. You can, there's a bunch of modified stuff in there, especially looking under Tim Hebel's, which we're going to get into that for the dome at some point. And then the only other thing I want to talk about here, and I know there's a lot of information in this video, but we don't technically need this piece for the back of the leg itself. The reason I print these is because I just like it for security reasons. It actually goes into the back of the leg where the center hub would go into. But because we printed off those center hub rings, it gets glued on there and screwed down. You don't technically need this, but I just like it because me personally, if I didn't glue it properly or something along those lines, it could pop out the back. It just could be it's just something that I like doing as an extra security measure. You don't have to print this, but if you do decide to print this, this is in the V2 folder in the leg section. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. So we made it through the build for the legs. As you can see, it is quite detailed. There's a lot of information that I've been giving to you guys. Again, this is just how I like to build it. Is it overkill? Maybe. Is there too much information? Maybe. I don't know. I like to be thorough and just show you guys, like, hey, there's a lot that goes into these kind of builds. Don't let that deter you. I hope you do build one of these. I'm always here to answer any questions, so please leave any comments, questions, concerns in the comments. I'll link everything down below as well with the Patreon, everything I've used between filaments, and everything, settings even on what parts get what. So I'll leave a detailed description for you guys as well. Hope you learned something, and as I move forward with the body, it should be a little bit easier with information, and we can just keep building this droid as the weeks go by. So I will catch you guys on the next one, and I will see you later.